Right, Warren, thanks very much for joining us, and thanks again for an amazing presentation that you gave today. I think we want to touch on some of those key points that you actually delivered. So, first of all, digital hospitals, right? They give you this amazing blank canvas of how to design infrastructure and data services. So, how do you manage the integration into the existing hospital landscape?
Preferably before they do the architecture for the building. We like to be involved right from the beginning around planning for what that digital hospital will look like. And when I say we involved, not just the ICT organisation, but also the clinicians and everybody that supports how that hospital will run. So BEMS, building management, right the way down to the wardens that are going around and obviously working the wards through to the security folks, and get everybody on the same page around what are the requirements, what are the existing requirements of those hospitals, what are the coming initiatives that we see in the pipeline, and also where is the opportunity for innovation. If we don't really start that right at the beginning when we do that architecture and design work, we're already trying to shoehorn in potentially a square peg into a round hole.
Yeah, of course. And you're obviously looking to build a number of more of these digital hospitals across the state. So is this, over time have you built this sort of very standard sort of blueprint and how to take that framework forward in order to build up, or is it kind of on an individual basis?
It really is on an individual basis because I'll give you a good example. You might be building a brand new hospital, say for children's. You might be building a brand new hospital for women's type of health issues. So we do have, before you'll recall, in Queensland we've split between the Women's and Children's Hospital, now has become Royal Brisbane Women's, and we've obviously got Children's Health Queensland, the former Lady Salento. So each of those particular environments will have very different needs, and aesthetics is really important as part of that discussion as well, let alone the discrete value that technology can bring to the different models of care and those different craft groups that are supporting those different patient types.
Absolutely. So patient data is within the press with multiple different opinions, whether it be from the EMR2 rollouts or whether it be from My Health records and opt-in and opt-out pieces, right? So it's a very complex landscape, but from your point of view, what do you see as the main use case for utilising that patient data effectively?
Sure. We must obviously acknowledge the privacy and the confidentiality needs with anything that we consider around patient data. So if we acknowledge that and we very respectfully put that to the side as to what the true value of patient data could be, I see that probably the most impressive area that it could be applied to is around precision medicine, but also predictive medicine based upon what you might learn from somebody's genome, for example, and then applying that precision medicine. And I'll give you a really good example. So I saw a presentation by a particular researcher, a very senior medical person, that was doing some development work around robotics, but also I think around some of the more the micro-sized technologies, if I can put it that way, nanotechnologies, and in the sense of how they were developing that type of a nanotechnology, which was something that I was completely surprised about. Like when you think nanotechnologies, you kind of think of the Hollywood version of that being something very tiny and microscopic and machine-like, but actually they were using DNA to craft this nanotechnology, and through the use of obviously the analysis of the data, we can then target certain types of, I guess, chronic conditions to then go ahead and start to preemptively respond to potential issues that patients may have using things like nanotechnologies in conjunction with the data that we're getting. So from a precision medicine perspective, I mean, there's some research out there at the moment that's talking about some amazing numbers around prolonging life. Which then brings obviously us to our problem I was talking to earlier in my presentation about, well, the growing population numbers and how we then manage that, which of course is becoming even more of a challenge. But what a wonderful opportunity though for patients and for the human race more generally.
Absolutely, like incredible opportunity. And at the moment, I mean, that needs communication and an integration of that communication collaboration from primary up through to tertiary physicians, right? So at the moment, that's quite a big step. Even though the technology's there, the processes are probably not as mature as the technology is.
No, and I think if you then equate that to how, as we as consumers expect to access certain types of information, because of the nature of healthcare being so much more cautious, we are I would say, quite a way behind in terms of how we then would manage and share that information, and rightly so, given also some of the challenges that other industries that have embraced the technology sooner have faced. So, I mean, the things like My Health Record and that, I don't think anyone disagrees that we do want to be able to access our patient information wherever we go, and I guess this is a first bold step that somebody had to take, and non-politically, we look forward to seeing that technology grow in its use and obviously its maturity as well, so that we can then start to share end to end. And we talk about patients being more informed as well. So I mean, as a person that's getting into that more senior age group as well, I want to be more informed about my healthcare, and I would like to have access to my healthcare information end to end to help me make the decisions that I need to make in partnership with a clinician, not in reliance totally on a clinician to make those decisions for me.
Absolutely, and maybe one day we can get rid of faxing totally.
Oh my goodness, yes, yeah, but it's, and while that seems funny, there's so many health services that still rely on faxes today, which is, and you've seen obviously in the history of the healthcare industry, government initiatives that have tried to crack the nut, so to speak, on patient referrals and things like that, and many failed types of projects because of the, I guess, the need to get the buy-in from that broader community end to end. But we still remain optimistic there's a future there, though.
Yeah. So moving away from faxes, and to your point earlier around robotics, right? So you're doing some very innovative projects with robotics, you mentioned, and how much of a focus does innovation get versus your business as usual? Percentage breakdown would be lovely.
Well, I think the numbers going around today were, and that one of the analysts was talking about, were reasonably accurate. And I think there's also different classes of innovation. There's innovation that we would do potentially as a maturity journey within operations and day-to-day. But if we were to look at just raw innovation within ICT, not necessarily within research, which is different again in a healthcare sense, but in ICT, it probably is around that 17% mark. Yeah, so the rest of it is probably more related to run, obviously the plan, build, run model, and break, fix, and where we can also then use that maturity journey to be able to leverage some of that OPEX, not necessarily capital, but OPEX to do innovative work, which is what we do whenever we find that we're tuning our budgets based upon the ebbs and flows of the workforce and natural things that occur within the environment.
Of course, and when you've got the time that you are spending on innovation, let's say it's in ICT, do you have a program in place that allows you to highlight the successful innovations that take place in order to scale them through the rest of the industry?
Yes, we do. We partner in a number of ways. So you might be aware of some of the incubation type activities that most governments are doing. We do partner in that space, and we do expose some of those innovation funds to those programs, which of course then allows startups and all those types of elements to get involved. And there's some great work being done out there in the community. We also then allocate through the different committees and the different programs that we're involved with internally, certain amounts of those funds to initiatives that have been decided by the clinicians in partnership with health to run. And then I think externally to that too, in terms of the health system more broadly, is we get involved in part with some of the initiatives that might be done in the regions within the hospital and health services, for example, as well. So it's really based upon how does it align with our strategic planning? What are those new opportunities that are emerging that we would take advantage of? Fail fast, learn fast, but not obviously fail fast in a patient sense, but in terms of embracing the technology in a safe environment in the first hands. So those are the ones that we exploit. And then finally is what can we do within the operational space? We're always, with a large workforce the size that we have in Queensland Health, especially in the technology space, we're always trying to find ways to improve how we do our business through the maturity model approach, so that the more of the standard ICT maturity model approach, which would also bring in part to that the use of innovations. And then I think finally is, well, how do we also provide new opportunities for our workforce to get their hands on new technology that is out there as part of our training programs and investments in our people. So there's lots of levers that we use, I guess is the one way to put it.
Absolutely. Okay, wonderful. So you're in a fairly unique position where you are continually delivering the services that you do throughout the state when natural disasters may hit, right? And those have a direct impact on your budgets for business as usual and innovation. With the increased number of natural disasters sort of taking place, how is that affecting the way that you are having to plan and having to budget this?
Yeah, so there's two parts to it. There's the capital component and there's the operational component. Operationally, it will impact our budget in terms of how we might choose to spend that operational funding, but generally our OPEX is our OPEX, and we are locked into a certain type of growth model there, which is very, very modest. Where it does impact us is obviously in the capital space. While we would like to, for example, manage our assets using a more mature model, because of the pressures that are put on us through natural disasters, which by the way are increasing just in the time that I have been here in this role, the number of natural disasters has increased incredibly since when I first started, in just 2.5 years, as to where it is now, which is quite surprising. And as a result of that, it's not just one-offs anymore, it's multiples. And you've got to ask yourself, even if you're managing your household budget, from a household budget perspective, at what point does that pressure become onto where you'll be spending money on getting a new TV or a new fridge or something versus actually having to repair damage done? On large scale, it's the same concept for governments. If we've got big bills to pay, the money has to come from somewhere. The revenue is not infinite. There is different federal related activities that you can certainly look at, but again, that's not infinite. And we are now seeing a looming issue around ongoing capital investments to committed funds that we saw in our pipeline as a result. We have yet to see that be realised, because obviously that's a decision that us as public servants, we can only guide the government on our positions, but ultimately it comes down to the political element to make those decisions based upon all the information they have.
Wow, so I guess linking all of that and that kind of piece back to why we're actually here, how do you deliver a resilient digital infrastructure, especially for an organisation as large as yours, 90,000 full-time employees, 107,000 I think total employees that you mentioned?
Total staff, yes. Yeah.
How?
The most important theory I think to apply here is never rest on your laurels. What is good enough today is not going to be good enough for tomorrow. We're seeing that now with the increased number of natural disasters. We're seeing that with the increased numbers in terms of volume in digital uptake and dependence on services. So I don't think you can now sit back of days of old where you could say that we're good for 10 years. Those days are changing rapidly. Technology is also moving faster, but we certainly need to keep continuing to evaluate. And we also get into the position through these natural disasters where we're constantly having to review what we do anyway, because it's real time for us. Mother Nature is testing us every day. The volumes are testing us every day. There seems to be something new come up every quarter in this game right now, which is a lot different to the way it used to be.